Hi, my name is Max and I'm going to explain how to use user datagram protocol in order to broadcast something in C language. So our purpose is to create a program, or so-called whiteboard, where we can draw and in real time everyone which is connected in this Wi-Fi or internet connection at the same port receives our drawing and can also draw in real time with different colors, but we'll talk about colors later. But first, let's see the implementation of the network part. Well, first of all, this project is done in Objective-C, but the network part is implemented in C language because Objective-C is a superset of C. There are a lot of things going on here, but I won't stop at drawing or gesture recognition because I'm going to talk about network part. And before starting actually the exchange of information between different devices, we should set the network, which is done in this function. Okay, so I will explain what's happening here. So first of all, we need to create a socket. Socket is nothing else, this variable sock is nothing else but an int. So it's created using this function. Here we specify that we will use address family of internet. In other words, we will use the internet version 4 for network layer. And here we specify that we will use the UDP at transport layer. Next, we need to actually arrange or prepare some addresses for sending and receiving in order to bind them or use send to function, which I will discuss later. And for this purpose we have two variables, send address and receive address. Basically they are of type struct, let's see, struct sock address in. Well, let's see what fields we have here. Send address, tada. So we have the actual address which is bind to this structure, the family which will be actually our internet family, the port number, and the 0 field, which is actually set to 0. But let's see what's going on here. Well, before setting the structure, we set every byte of it to 0, which function mem set. Then we specify the family, which is internet family. We set our address. This is done in this way. This function transforms the actual address in the right network byte order. And it's very similar to this one, which performs the same thing with the port number. So our send address is set. We do the same thing with the receive address, and then we need to set some socket options, which is done with this function. We specify the socket. We specify that we will change some options at the socket level. We indicate our options. We indicate the enable or disable. Basically we set it to 1 here, and we say that we want to enable this option, broadcasting. Then in the end we bind our socket to the receive address. Well, it's important here to mention that the receive address is bound to in address any. Basically it states that set it right now to 0 and then accept any available network interface which will come. Okay, so after we set the network, let's see how the sending is performed. Well, skip this, I will explain it later, but here it's important, this function, which is send to, where we indicate the socket, we transmit the message, transmit the length of the message. 0 indicates that we do not need any additional flags for options or how we want to call this function. Then we also send the address of send address. Here's the casting to struct sock address. Well, you might ask yourself why we cast to something else, but the length of this structure and that one declared in the header is the same, so it's perfectly legal, and the size of send address. So this is how we send the message, and let's see how we receive it. Again, I will explain later what's going on here, but the important thing is this line of code where we call the rec from the socket. We write it into a buffer which is named message. We receive the size of the message, again the additional flags, and we receive the address. Basically here is stored the address of the sender, which is important because later we will check if we are sending this message or something else, or somebody else. And here the length of the receive address is set. Okay. So now our goal is to send some packets which will contain our caller